This is the Italian Citizenship Podcast, hosted by Marco Permunian and Rafael Di Furia.
Well, this is a bit different. Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Italian Citizenship Podcast. I am here with Italian attorney and head of ICA's U.S. offices, Marco Permunian, and I am Rafael Di Furia, and we are here for a not so special edition of this Italian Citizenship Podcast. We are keeping our distance and trying to do our part during this time. Marco wanted to take some time for us to go through and talk a little bit about what's going on and how that's affected the current situation with Italian citizenship and the acquisition of Italian citizenship during this dark moment in history. But Marco, anyway, let's get into this a little bit. How have you been, and how have things been in this world of Italian citizenship?
First of all, I wanted to thank everybody who has been watching our podcast. And I wanted to reassure everybody that Rafael and I are practicing social distancing, so we're respecting the rules. We do have a few episodes that we recorded before the lockdown, but we wanted to touch base with you to share our thoughts about the current situation. So we'll be doing another long distance video podcast if necessary to talk about the current situation a little bit in detail. And Rafael, before I let you ask all of your questions, I wanted to say to everybody that as an Italian, I feel like we are very strong people. So we're going to get through this bad moment quickly, and it seems like Italy is doing a little bit better, so we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, no, I agree. Italy has been so... I've mentioned this before in other online videos and interviews that I've done recently, but the way that the Italian people have been able to come together in such a difficult, dark moment has been a beautiful thing. The way that people have been helping each other. Even some larger companies are doing their part and trying to help how they can, like Ferrari and Lamborghini are building ventilators during this time. And anyway, this is a different subject, but just I have to say, as an Italian American who now lives in Italy, that it is... I really feel so grateful to be here during this moment. Just even though things haven't looked so great, and they have been, there have been some very, very dark moments. I'm still so happy to be here rather than anywhere else at this point in time. But anyway, maybe more in regards to citizenship. It's been a long time since you and I last saw each other in person. What has been going on since then, and in regards to the current global situation?
This is one of the most difficult times that the world had to face since World War II. So it's a very, very tough time. The Italian government has applied some restriction to workers, so they have not been allowing some workers to continue to go to work. My profession is considered by the Italian government as essential, so I've been going to work every day, so my daily routine has not changed. We did have to take some precautions, very strong precautions, to protect our employees, both in Italy and in the US. The majority of them is working from home, but luckily we came up with very quick and efficient solutions to protect their health and assure that the work of ICA basically never stopped.
That's fantastic. That's really wonderful to hear.
I have to admit, we have been busier than ever in the past couple of months, as opposed to what somebody may think. I believe because the Italian American community is very, very connected to the roots, there has been a very large interest in Italian citizenship. So we have been receiving a lot of inquiries in the past few weeks from people, and maybe that has to do with the fact that people are home, so they have the time to focus on projects that they didn't have the time to focus on in the past. So we are helping more clients than we were helping before.
Wow.
And we hope that the situation will, of course, get back to normal as soon as possible. But we are here to help everybody and anybody who's interested in starting this journey and has the time to do so in these difficult times.
Yeah, no, it's really wonderful to hear that people are taking advantage of this moment, because there's a lot of people do have a lot of time on their hands, and so they may as well use that for something like this.
And because of this increased interest, I'd say that this is a very good time to start the dual citizenship application process. And we believe that the number of people seeking Italian citizenship will increase. If even the people that wish to apply for citizenship in Italy, as soon as we get past this difficult moment.
And I think you're actually starting to get into an interesting point here. We've mentioned it a number of times in the in this podcast, and also I've mentioned it in my videos on my YouTube channel, that as time goes on, it's always been the case that even before this, that getting started as soon as possible with the citizenship process always seemed like a good idea. But from what you're saying, with this possible increase in the interest, I can't help but wonder if maybe there might be this almost boom, so to speak, in this field of people who are interested, and that it might make it a good, even better reason to get started sooner rather than later, which would always be the case in general. But probably given the circumstances, I would think that maybe now would be a good time as well. But moving on a little bit, what would you say has probably been the biggest challenge that you've faced during the situation?
I'd say the biggest challenge has probably been being able to continue assisting our clients in the most efficient manner and coming up with creative solutions to being able to protect our workers and employees in the best possible way without having to disrupt the service at any time. Luckily, we have a great team, both in the US and Italy, who was able to adapt to the current situation very quickly. And I have to say I'm extremely impressed by what my team was able to do there. Everybody, or almost everybody, is working from home. Nothing has changed since when they were all together in the office.
That's really so fantastic to hear that you guys have been able to figure out this way of continuing, even granted the circumstances that you guys are that not just you guys, but all of us are dealing with. But what about actually going through the process for claiming Italian citizenship? How is that being affected right now? Are government offices even open during this time?
Of course, they're open. The Italian bureaucratic system never sleeps. I'd say things have been working pretty much as they were before. Of course, everybody's taking precautions, so they're adjusting the way they used to work with people, and they're doing that in a very efficient way. So I've not seen any particular difficulties, and I've not seen major delays in citizenship applications being processed by consulates or Italian municipalities. There are some slight delays, which is kind of understandable. Consulates and municipalities, they're focusing on urgent matters sometimes, but I see that things are progressing. So people's citizenship applications are being approved, and both by Italian consulates and Italian municipalities. So I think everybody is really doing a great job.
And that's something that's really been amazing to see, that no matter how difficult things have gotten, that they have continued to push forward and not allow this to stop them. Like even you were just mentioning about how people are getting their citizenship during this time. Even I've been hearing stories of people being registered in the IRE, which is part of getting your recognition for citizenship through a consulate. So it's really, I keep on saying how impressive it is, but just impressive to see how the Italian government is continuing with their services, because I know I was wondering when this started, are they even going to continue with this? But regardless of the situation, they're just full force ahead. But just one thing, from what you were saying is this was kind of sounding like you're talking about people who've already submitted a request for citizenship or recognition of citizenship, I should say. What about people who are wanting to just get started with it now?
Recently, I've been getting this question a lot. Is it safe to start the citizenship process now? Is this a good time to start the process? And the answer that I always give is because, as everybody knows, the citizenship process is generally a quite long process. It can take many months to get an appointment with an Italian consulate, especially in the US, because of the huge interest in applying for Italian citizenship. This coronavirus emergency will probably not make a huge difference in terms of timeline. The procurement of the documents needed to support the citizenship application can be, I have to admit, can be a little bit slower right now because public offices are maybe, some offices are closed or some offices are understaffed. They only focus on urgent requests. So it may take a few more months than usual to collect all the necessary documentation to support a citizenship application. But because the wait time for an appointment can be very many months, as I said a moment ago, it doesn't make a huge difference that we now have this emergency. Of course, we do hope that it will be over soon, but I don't think this crisis will affect the process of people who are thinking about starting the dual citizenship process now.
I think it's a really interesting point that you've raised, because for sure, most of the people who would be starting it now, you can only really start with the gathering process right now. It's not actually the processing side of the process itself until a much later date, regardless, if you're just starting.
Exactly. What people do, as we all know, is the first step of the process is always, as we said many times in our videos, is securing the appointment with the consulate, because the appointments are very many months out. So once you have done that, once you have secured your date, you can start focusing on gathering the documents, which will be maybe a slower process right now, but still there's plenty of time to gather the documents ahead of your appointment.
But what about for people who want to apply here in Italy? What would be the situation for them?
Well, for sure, even if municipalities are potentially accepting applicants, for sure this is not a good time to travel. And because of the restrictions, it may not even be possible to travel to Italy at this time. So for those people who have their applications ready and who are ready to travel to Italy to start the application process, maybe for them it would be better to just postpone their trip. And because this is a temporary situation, we hope to be able to tell our clients soon that it's a good time to go to Italy to apply for citizenship.
But then what about people who are going through a 1948 case or someone who has to go through the judicial system for Italian citizenship?
Because that can also be a long process, I always tell my potential clients that it's a good time now to start gathering all of the documents needed to support their claim, to then be able to file the case in court when the situation will be back to normal.
And I think this actually is kind of like what you were talking about before with the Italian citizenship I descended at the consulate, that, and kind of tying it into something that I've said in my own videos on YouTube, is that even though that things in the world have slowed down right now, it doesn't mean that things have stopped. And that if you have something that you can work on, this is an amazing opportunity to be able to keep on pushing forward, and just because things around you have stopped doesn't mean that you need to stop as well. But moving on, something that I've been actually quite curious about personally, and without going into too much detail here, Have you noticed a difference in the reason why people have been contacting you for Italian citizenship, or maybe a difference in the type of person who's been contacting you for getting this process started?
It's basically the same people, but I'd say that getting Italian citizenship became a top priority now for very many people. As we all know, one of the advantages of having Italian citizenship is the ability of using the Italian national health care system. So many people around the world recently have started to be concerned about the possibility of not being covered by their national health care system. So they have been wanting to get Italian citizenship even more, because even if things look bad in Italy right now, the Italian national healthcare system remains one of the best in the world. And I have to say that the response of the Italian government and the Italian healthcare system to the crisis has been excellent so far.
It's been beyond amazing what the healthcare system has been able to do, and the people who are working, the healthcare professionals themselves, what they have done during these times is out of this world.
And something that I wanted to add is that the current situation in Italy may not even compare to what's coming for other countries. And recently we've had a glimmer of hope with the numbers going down here.
And one thing that I can't help but wonder is that even though things have been pretty bad here, I can't help but wonder how they might become in other countries, how the situation may progress in other parts of the world. And I've been noticing online and in the news more eyes on Italy, not just because it's Italy, but also because of the Italian healthcare system and the way that the Italian healthcare professionals have professionals and the national government officials in charge of healthcare, how they've responded to this situation. So I can't help but wonder if maybe that's connected to why you were saying that there have been people who have been getting in contact because of that concern of healthcare, and especially with many Americans finding themselves with limited or no medical coverage. I can't help but be sympathetic to that with how expensive medical services are in the United States, that there may be people who are looking towards Italy, that it may be possible to live a life that they don't have to worry about that as much. That wasn't one of the main reasons why I came to Italy, but it was definitely something that I found very interesting as a bonus to Italian citizenship when I had been going through the process. And by the time I finally got my citizenship and was able to move to Italy, it was this huge stress that was off of my shoulders, that I didn't have to be so concerned as I had been previously in regards to the cost of coverage, and maybe, like many Americans, avoiding going to the hospital or even a doctor unless it's completely necessary. Unfortunately, that's all too common in the United States. More so before I left, but I know there are people who still do this even since the healthcare change in America has come around, because it didn't quite turn into the system that people hoped it would. But moving on to just a personal note, what have you noticed on your commute to work? Because as you were mentioning before, you're still able to go to your office. There's nobody else there with you, but what has that been like for the people who are curious about a glimpse of the outside world right now? Because I'm at home right now, and so I'm very curious about some parts of the outside world beyond just the supermarket and the pharmacy, because that's basically the only places I can go right now.
So I have to say, especially in my region, the Veneto region, everybody is doing an excellent work. It seems like everyone is respecting the rules, so you don't see very many people around, and businesses are closed except for essential businesses and essential workers. But a lot of businesses have found creative ways to fight this emergency. So I've seen, for example, a lot of restaurants and pizzerias,
All right.
delivering foods at home. Like almost everyone is doing that right now. And if you call them, you even have to wait to get your food because everybody's ordering.
That's so wonderful because for a long time we weren't able to get any deliveries. Even I got my own visit because Monday was the first day here in Rovigo for us that we could get delivery again after more than a month. I got a little visit from the Pizza Fairy, which was a very nice welcome visit.
And because going out to dinner was for us Italians a daily or weekly routine, everybody was pretty sad at the beginning when everything closed. But I have to say that it is so amazing to see that all of these places have set up these delivery systems which are so efficient and work so well, and that people are requesting delivers this much. It just makes me very happy.
Me too. It's really been so nice to see. Just like it's that first kind of feeling of getting back to normal that we've had, and like showing that little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Even like here in Rovigo, like you were saying, if going out to dinner here, people really go out here, and there's a lot of really wonderful restaurants in this city. And if you go on the weekends, for example, you can't even get in without a reservation because people are just out. And in general here in Italy, a lot of social activities and life in general happens outside of the home because homes here, like apartments, are generally a lot smaller than what Americans might have. And so it's just part of what people do here is that they get out and about. They go stand on the piazza and talk. Like all the time here, you notice people just standing on the corner, groups of old men on their bicycles hanging out, talking to each other, the little old ladies sitting on the benches talking about what's going on. And it's just, it feels like we're getting a step closer to back to that normalness that we've had. But just one last question for you, and getting back a little bit more into the citizenship process and kind of going through that. What would you say to somebody who's maybe just started on the citizenship process before this all started, or somebody who has got this passion and this time now that's on their hands and they just want to keep on trying to do this? What would you say to that person who's at those very early initial stages?
Maybe I'm repeating myself here, but I wanted to say again that this is the right time to start the process. As I said before, the citizenship process can be a very long process in some cases. So because of the coronavirus emergency, things will be slower, but it's important to keep moving forward, especially with such long process, which can take several months. Especially now, if people have the time to focus on this and maybe gather information from their family, which they see more often, or because they talk to their family more often over the phone because they're home. So this is a great time to start this journey. It's a long process, so there is no better time than starting the process now. Also, given the advantages of Italian citizenship, they're even more important now. I'd say to people who are interested, start the process. It's a long process, so the sooner the better.
I would definitely agree with each and every one of those statements. Marco, I think this actually is a good place to leave off for this time. And thanks so much for taking the time to talk to people about what's been going on, because I know there have been a lot of people wondering what's going on right now with their citizenship process that they've already started, that they've submitted, or for those who are just getting started. I think people are really going to be very happy to hear what you've had to say, and so grateful for the insight you've been able to share. So on their behalf, and even for myself, my own curiosity as someone who's interested in this process, thank you so much for taking this time to go through that with us.
Thank you.
And for anybody who is interested in the subject of Italian dual citizenship, feel free to leave any questions down in the comments section below here on YouTube. And that may be something that we can talk about in a future episode here on the Italian Citizenship Podcast. And if you're wanting to know anything about the current situation and how that may be affecting your citizenship process, feel free to contact Marco and his team. Or if you are looking to get started on the Italian citizenship process and you don't even know where to get started, you can find their contact info on italiancitizenshipassistance.com. Again, we spent some time here with Marco Permunian, Italian attorney and the head of the U.S. Office of Italian Citizenship Assistance, who is currently here in Italy in his Rovigo office. But I'm sure as soon as this is all over, you'll be very excited to get back to your offices in Los Angeles. And of course, I'm Rafael Di Furia. Thank you so much for joining us again. And of course, like Marco said, also at the beginning of this podcast, we do have a few more episodes that were recorded before the lockdown happened. So we will get back to normally scheduled programming or content, however you want to put it, very soon. And if we do get to that point where we do need to continue the podcast long distance, we do have that ability. And if there are any major updates, we will be sure to keep you updated. Be sure to check out the Italian Citizenship Assistance Facebook page for more info. Anyway, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.